Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Your Town Matters. I'm joined today by the Mayor of Eastern Charlotte, John Craig. Thank you, John, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
I almost tripped up saying Mayor of Eastern Charlotte. I almost said Blacks Harbor, but we actually were at your first council meeting this month. Looking back on it now, how do you think it went?
I think it went very well. I mean, I had 8 councillors, and most of them are fairly new, so only a couple with any experience at all. And no, it went very well, and they were all kind of nervous starting out, and it probably shows a little bit, but they did exceptionally well. And I think they were prep well going into it. With the motions and that sort of thing, so they did a good job. They were ready for what was coming forward. It's one of the easier meetings, but they had some major decisions to make last night.
Yes, and one of those was choosing a deputy mayor. For people who didn't watch or weren't there in person, can you tell us how that went?
Well, it was David Hatt, Councillor Hatt. I say David Hatt because we actually have 2 Councillor Hatts, and David got 6 votes right off. We had 3 people running, and he got 6 votes right off the beginning. And usually, when there's 3 people running, I wasn't expecting this. Usually, when you have that type of split, one person has to drop out, and then you have another ballot, have another go around with it. But David won it on the first round, and he got enough votes to get it first round. So the rest of it's a vote of council, and that's the way it should be. And the vote of council put their faith behind David Hatt. So.
Now, one of the topics of last night too was whether Eastern Charlotte should be designated a town or a rural district. Is that right?
Yes, a rural area, rural community. So yeah, when this whole amalgamation started, the transitional team had to make a choice of what we're going to be called. And at the time, I don't feel the transition team had enough information, and so and apparently we didn't. A lot of it comes down to money. If you're determined a rural area, the problems figures that you don't need as much money in the unconditional grant formula to give you more money because they figure that you don't have much infrastructure. We do have a lot of infrastructure. Blacks Harbor and St. George are 2 incorporated areas. We have a large amount of that infrastructure that we have to pay for. So we need that money. So we don't want to be left out in the formula for unconditional grants. The unconditional grants last year alone dropped over $200,000 for our whole area. It dropped from it was $700,000 down to $500 and some thousand now. So that's a lot of money that we're losing, and we don't want to lose any more money if we're considered a rural area. So the formula usually is based on city, town, and village. So we want to stay up there as designated as a town. The other things too is that there's money being. If we're a town, we have control in the outside areas for certain areas. One is the dangerous unsightly areas, which we have to pay the province money to do. So I think it's how much was the figure? I got to look that up because I don't want to give $140,000 we have to pay out. We can do that ourselves. If you leave it up to the province, anybody knows if you leave it up to the province and the outside areas, these areas aren't being taken care of now. They don't have enough inspectors, enough people to enforce it. We figure that we can do the job ourselves. So if we're considered a town, we are allowed to do that. So we'll take the $140,000 and we'll use it to enforce these unsightly and dangerous areas. Or unsightly areas. So that's another reason. Another one is all the areas around us, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, they remain towns. And our population of Eastern Charlotte is quite large, and as far as population, we're very big. If you take like St. Andrews and Grand Manan together, we're still bigger than the two of them combined. So we're one of the larger areas. We should be considered a town, and not just a rural area. I thought there was one more reason.
I guess that you're right. Like it would be a population based.
Yeah, well, we had Jason Gadet, who was our CEO, come up with a recommendation, and his recommendation was that we go to a town. And in the part of it too was in the transitional team. In the night when this was discussed by the transitional team, the CEOs were not there at the meeting. So therefore, the transition team never had the full information in front of them to make these choices. So that's the reason why. Some reasons why, and the bottom line is it comes down to money too. If you lose money unconditionally, and your unconditional grants, if you're losing money because you're paying for a service you're not getting, and you can do it yourself better, then you save money. So if you save money, the more money you can save, the better you can try to keep the tax rate down for everybody.
I think that was one point. I remember Jason saying that there's only one other, and I can't remember which community in New Brunswick that chose to stay as a rural district, but that population, I think part of the reason why at first you thought maybe rural district was because it's so expansive, Eastern Charlotte, but population-wise,
we're running around 7,700 people, so I think St. Stephen's the only one that's bigger than us. I think they're around 87 or something like that. So, but we're one of the bigger ones. So.
But that was I believe your first tiebreaker vote of the night was on this topic, and you had two, so quite an interesting council to follow.
Yeah, so that came down to a 4-4 split. The four that voted against it weren't really against it, but they wanted to put more time into it. But the four figured they had enough information. They're not going to get any more information than what they already had. But going by what they were debating back and forth. So I listened to the debate, and I chose to go with the town. So. And
your next tiebreaker decision was another topic that was a 4-4 split, and that is the name of Eastern Charlotte. I think it was Councillor Thompson that put forward the motion to consider changing the name to Coastal Charlotte.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which was a front runner for a name to begin with, but Eastern Charlotte ultimately won out.
Absolutely, that's what it came down to. And Councillor Thompson was doing his job as a councillor and doing a good job. And the people in his area, his ward, wanted him to bring that forward. He brought it forward, rightly so, last night, and he got it on the table, because you have to do these things at the very beginning, because the government's not going to make any changes as we get down the road further. And that's the reason. One of the reasons why I voted to keep it at Eastern Charlotte is because if we try to change it now, and it's not that I had anything against Coastal Charlotte or the rest of them did. It said if you make the change now, it's going to put us behind 4 or 5 months, because if you go through the process again and take it back to the people, you want them to vote on it again and go through the whole process, coming up with the name or coming up with different names, then that name has to go to the province to be accepted as well. It's not just a foregone, you just can't pick any name out of the hat and expect them to go with it. They have to approve it as well. So that's a process in itself too. So you're talking, at least 4 months down the road that we can't do anything. I mean, you don't realize all the things you can't do when you don't actually have a name. From names on the buildings to checks to everything to do with banking. So there's a lot to it. So it would held us up for a long time. Just business cards, everything. So, you don't realize even our logo. We don't even have a logo for Eastern Charlotte to put on on our letterheads and all that sort of thing too. So there's a lot to it. So we figure the four that voted for it wanted it done. It's time to move on. Let's not go down that road again. It left some hard feelings. We do know that. So there's people in the area that still wanted the Coastal Charlotte, but we just didn't want to rip off that Band-Aid again and continue going down that road, and we wanted to move on and continue. It's not, like I say, to me it wasn't that I was against Coastal Charlotte. It's that I feel there was just time we had to move ahead. You don't realize that this is not a 4-year term. It's only about 2.5-year term, because we're amalgamating, so we're taking on the last term. They want to keep it online, so really it's not a full 4 terms. So we got to try to get as much done as we can.
It was definitely, though, I would say, a really interesting debate to follow and to be sitting in the audience.
For me, I mean, I've been mayor for about 11, 12 years, I think I may have voted once in the entire time. I did twice last night. So that's I don't know if this was going to continue or not.
Oh, it was interesting. I like sitting and hearing a healthy debate. I think Councillor McKay said, for tourism reasons, maybe coastal Charlotte sounds better. Councillor Adam Hatt said, look, though, in democracy, the people have voted, and Eastern Charlotte won by 0.3%.
Absolutely.
Which I think, I'm going to say Councillor Thompson, I could be wrong, then debated, well, maybe that's too close, maybe we should, and that someone said voting boxes were maybe not so obvious to people at the time, so it was really an interesting debate to follow for our first council meeting.
Exactly, and I think that's healthy, that's great. I think the people that elected you want you to be in there debating the issues and know how you feel on every issue, and that's a good thing. And I really want council to do that. I don't want to go into that room having foregone conclusions. Say the council will just rubber stamp everything that you've decided on all last month. That's why I have committees now set up, which are different. I have 8 committees of council, and every councillor has to chair one committee.
Okay.
And they also have to sit on 2 others. So in the committee work, they have to make a recommendation to council on an issue. So say it's safety, for example, on policing or something like that. There's an issue that comes up. They'll make a recommendation to council, and the council will make the final decision at a council meeting. This way, by doing it this way, you will get more debate, because the committee will. The council will not just automatically vote for what the committee says. They'll listen to everything they said. But at the end of the day, the council has the final say. So therefore, you get good debate, and that's really good. It's good to have that debate. It's healthy. It looks good, and people understand. When you debate it, people get both sides of the issue too.
So are these portfolios that each councillor is having, have they been determined at this point?
Yes, I announced them last night. I didn't bring the list with me today, but I know finance is Councillor Lee, and which is actually finance is probably the biggest one, because everything revolves around money. But I have one that's separate than the other. Usually in most areas, public safety, you have the fire is included with it. Mm-hmm. We decided to take that apart, and the public safety is going to be more EMO and policing. Fire has one all by itself. We get quite a few fire departments in Eastern Charlotte, and I want them to have a special committee just for fire departments, because because they're all nervous about with this amalgamation. I want them to feel that they have a say, and we have a separate committee just to be for the fire department. So that's I don't have the rest of them with me, but they're all important. You got ones on housing, and you got ones on business development and that sort of thing too, and. But no, every councillor has to sit on one, and like I say, brings it forward to council. I did tell the committee chairs that when you make the decision at council at the committee level, don't get your heart set on it, because council has the final say.
How is navigating? I know as a journalist, I was curious to see how amalgamation would play out. Having in some councils that I cover have up to 9 councillors. You have 8. Mm-hmm. How is it navigating that many councillors at a meeting with also such a large audience, which I always love about Macadavic Place. It draws a big crowd, and I think that having Eastern Charlotte, there's always a lot of people, residents, that care a lot about local politics. Which
is great, yeah. Isn't that awesome that people come out for it? I was surprised how many people come out last night, and that's great. I love it, but we're the biggest show in town. But no, I think part of it was CHCO last night. We got there early, and they set up the table, so it makes it easier for me to see. They did the sort of a horseshoe sort of thing, which made my visibility at the table to be able to see everybody. 8 councillors, they got to keep looking both sides to see who puts their hand up. I told each councillor ahead of time that in order to speak, they have to raise their hand, and I recognize them, so that way we don't get people talking over and top of each other. Council did a great job with that last night, no problems at all, so it made it easier for the microphones, and they had different people talking. So no, Council did a really good job, and quite proud of them. And like I say they were definitely nervous. Some of them showed up an hour early to the meeting last night because they wanted to make sure they were ready and all that sort of thing, which is great. I mean, this is awesome. They're all taking it seriously, and they want to all do a good job, and they all care for the community. I'm very fortunate to have a great council.
It went very smoothly, and I also hope that Eastern Charlotte is a model for other communities to see how residents and voters can be involved just by attending? I know that you can watch at home, but still there's that nice component of having an audience there, and they can also, there's always opportunities to speak your mind in council.
Well, that's one thing last night too. We I don't know if you saw that we added to our agenda for Eastern Charlotte is an opportunity. And this is something not every area does this. Near the end of the meeting, before I go to councilors' concerns, anybody from the audience or anybody from Eastern Charlotte can get up to the podium, and they have 5 minutes to speak, and they can speak on any issue to do with the municipality. I mean, you can't talk about what's going on in the moon or today, but if they want to talk about, they got something they really want to get off their chest and want to talk about, they have that opportunity now. They have 5 minutes to get up. They can speak. Just tell us who you are, where you're from, and tell council what what your big issue is. You want to get it across to council, and council will not interrupt you. You have that 5 minutes to speak, and we will say thank you very much. We'll take it in an advisement and move forward with it or not. So, but it gives the people a chance to speak. So that's something that we did add to the agenda this time, which is a lot of people have not done that yet. There's something that I think it was seen down in the States, somewhere down in the States, that they do that, and it's something that we wanted to have in our new council, just something new, and get the people involved.
Now, I think anyone who knows you, who lives in the Eastern Charlotte region, knows what an effort you put in, especially running for mayor. You declared that you were running many months before the election. You made quite an effort to get out there to all corners of Eastern Charlotte to meet with voters. Now that you are the mayor, how are you navigating that? It's a big region to cover. I know it's a municipality, but it's still, I think of it almost as a region.
It is, and I have to depend on the councilors to help me out to give me information, staffing to give me information. I got a great staff, and Jason Gadet has great people working for him that are helping me as well too. I'm trying to make sure that every area gets involved or feel involved, I guess is probably a better word to say it, because for example, last weekend, and I want to make sure I get this right, Janet and Charles Levitt live in Back Bay, 60th wedding anniversary. So I made sure that we had a nice, beautiful certificate made up with Eastern Charlotte, and I drove down to Back Bay, and I had called Mike Thompson, who's the Councillor Thompson, who's the ward councillor for down there. He met me there. We went to their house and then gave them a nice certificate from Eastern Charlotte. I want everybody to feel that they feel part of Eastern Charlotte. So that's one thing I'm going to be working on, to making sure, like for anniversaries and birthdays, making sure I go to all these things. But I need the councillors to tell me what's going on too. They can't expect me to know everything. But and Councillor Thompson has done a great job and let me know all the people in his area who have these special times coming up. So I make sure, and like I say, that brings us all together as we're all one area now. It's not just Back Bay against Bonnie River, or Bonnie River against St. George. We're all Eastern Charlotte now. We're all together, and we have that certificate made up of Eastern Charlotte. It makes everybody feel they belong.
So the councillors, that's it. You have a ward system now, which is interesting too. So not only having portfolios, I guess part of a councillor's responsibility, maybe not as much if you're at large, but if you are representing a ward, would be to find out those very localized concerns. Exactly,
and I expect my ward councillors to know their area, know the people in it, know the people that actually led there before. So there might be people that they used to be LSDs. So know the people that used to be the LSD people in that area. Keep those connections going, keep the conversation going, know what's going on in your area, and if something special is going on, let me know. I tell them all, if you need the mayor there at this event, make sure I know about it, and I'll make sure I'm there, because it's very important. That's what I'm trying to do, is gel this all together, making sure that we all come together, and by having the mayor at all these events, because mayor before was only in St. George or Black Cyber. Now it's all Eastern Charlotte, so everybody is going to have a mayor coming to come and help celebrate their special days. One
of the things you mentioned last night too is that because of the population of Eastern Charlotte, this gives you 2 votes at the Southwest Service Commission. I don't fully understand what that means yet, so I'd love for you to explain it.
And I don't really understand too. They say it is determined. There's certain things on the docket that we will get 2 votes on. Okay. They didn't actually determine what those items are yet, but it sounds like pretty important stuff. So St. Stephen and St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte, because of our populations, we're over 5,000. we'll get 2 votes at the table, and that's important because it goes by the population. So we'll have a bigger say on projects going on in the area. It's not that we want to take everything. We have to work together, but at least at the end of the day, we'll have extra clout, I guess, at the table, and be nice that we all work together, because they're taking on extra roles as well, the Southwest Service Commission. So,
and we will be having in the near future someone from the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission here, same seat as you, to explain how this is going to work.
Good, you ask him that
going forward.
I was just surprised. I get 2 votes.
Right.
And then I think Mayor Henderson told me, he says, you can't vote nay and yay on the I think he's pulling my leg.
Is it fair to think of it, the way I'm envisioning it right now is almost like a second council of the region?
It is, basically it is, and all the mayors sit on it, and so it's a good chance to talk, and it's a great opportunity to speak with the other mayors and see what their problems are. A lot of times our issues are the same. You know, it might be in different sizes of the problems, but you got housing is definitely a number big issue. Policing is probably one of the top things in the province of New Brunswick, and it definitely is in our area as well. McAdams had issues up there, and we all have, you know. I mean, this past year, Eastern Charlotte had a big crime wave, people breaking into camps and that sort of thing too. So it seemed to be more professional type of hits this year. So I mean, policing is definitely a major issue, which we all have to work together on.
So those are some of the issues that I know it's so early to say what will be the main issues, but do you foresee policing, housing, what will be the big tackle?
Well, I mean, those tourism would be definitely one. Community development would be definitely one. I have one person who, Glenn Hawkins, who is basically our project manager, who has worked for Black Cyber. I say it's not for Eastern Charlotte yet because council's meeting with his group next week, but he has been our project manager working on housing, making sure these housing deals go through. That's very important. You need somebody like that as a project manager to make sure things move ahead. Sometimes our manager is so busy with the day-to-day activities. I'm not taking anything away from Jason because Jason's got a lot on his plate, but we need somebody to move things ahead and make that phone call daily to a developer, making sure things are moving ahead. Sometimes if phone calls don't get made, say a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, next thing you know is a month and a half go by and things aren't happening. So we have a person just constantly pushing or trying to find people to develop on land. We want to get things moving along. Like Black Cyber, for example, will have a lot of land to be able to develop down there, so we want to get that started with the new council as well.
And Jason Godet, CAO of Eastern Charlotte, was the CAO of Town of St. George, but I know he made an effort too. I saw him at the Blacks Harbor Council meetings in the process of this transition. How's that going, just working with Jason?
Oh my goodness, we're very lucky to have Jason. Yeah, Jason does a great job, and great working relationship with him. Like I say, that I told council that he's part of our team. Council is a team, but Jason's an integral part of the team. We have to work with him. You have to remember that as mayor, I'll be working closely with Jason, and I take his advice. You, as a mayor, you always have to take advice. You can't think you can do it all or think you know it all, because you don't. But yeah, so he and I will be sitting down, maybe not daily, but at least 2 to 3 times a week. We're talking on issues and making sure we're on the same wavelength on it. And Jason, can say we're very lucky to have him. He's got lots of energy. He's originally from Black Cyber, and his grandfather's picture is up in there. When you walk in the arena, his grandfather's picture is up there. He has a lot. He has a lot of care for that arena down there. He cares about it, and I could say he's a numbers guy, which I like. He's when it comes to budgets, everything revolves around the budget, and if council has to make a motion to pay for something, we have to say where that's coming from the budget, and that's something he believes in as well. That we always have to know exactly where that money's coming from at all times.
Now, I think last time you were here, this was just on the horizon, but now it's official. You are the first New Brunswicker to be mayor of 3 different communities. So you started St. Andrews, Blacks Harbor, now Eastern Charlotte.
Yeah.
It's a reality now. What kind of experience from the past informs what you're doing now?
Well, I think it's great now because I've got a brand new council and they're all fairly new. and they, like I say, you try to give them advice along the way, things that I've seen in the past that didn't work with councils or created problems. For example, you try to make sure that council doesn't fall into those same pitfalls, and you try to get them working together closely. It's not me reigning over them; it's me working with them as a team to make sure they're all, working together. You may not always agree on everything, but at least don't fall into making mistakes and saying the wrong thing. And I'll use this as an example. Say emails, for example. Sometimes councilors may start debating issues on emails, and I stop that up right away. I said, don't do that, because issues have to be dealt with at the table. Sometimes when you send emails out and you're trying to debate an issue, one wrong word ticks somebody off, and the way it goes, everybody's got a hard feeling. So wait till we get together as a team. We sit down at the table. You can see each other, and you can see facial expressions. You can see how they meant what they're saying. Did they mean it as a joke? Did they mean it as reality? Or facial expressions and being there one on one. And everybody gets to see everything all at the same time. Sometimes when you write things down in an email, one wrong word, it goes fly. So I try. That's just one example. I mean, there's all kinds of things that having experience and seeing things go wrong in the past. But like I say, the council listened very well last night. They were well prepared last night, making the motions. You saw when they did the motions, they were well prepared. The motions were accurate, right to the point, and they didn't speak out of turn. They spoke when they rose they put their hand up and stuff like that. We had a little training on that, so they're very good with that. So.
Well, as a person who was anxious to see how amalgamation would unfold, it was very, very nice to see last night just how smoothly it seems to be going in.
Well, we're trying. Like I say, I mean, this is something the province has put us into, and we're trying our best to make it work. And like I say, every councilor there at the table is doing their best.
Well, this is our first Your Town Matters of your time as Eastern Charlotte Mayor, but I am sure that you will be back next month to illuminate us once again. Thanks so much.
See how many more votes I get next month. See if I get back or not.
Thanks for being here today, John.
Thank you very much for having me.
My guest today has been Mayor John Craig of Eastern Charlotte. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Your Town Matters.